Hi, my name's Jillian Williams, and you're watching Disney Channel. No, I'm just playing. You're watching Jalen Talks. Today we're gonna talk about my testimony. Let's just jump into it. So, I guess I'll work my way backwards. No, let's just get into it. I used to be gay and depressed, and also I thought I was trans. But the only reason I thought I was trans was to appease a person. So that's pretty crazy. And I was lost. Like, all I knew, you know how the enemy's supposed to be the voice of the stranger. I mean, that me and him must have been close because he was all I was listening to, and God ended up sounding like the stranger to me. But I've always had this relationship with God where I've always heard Him, but you know, I would ignore Him.
Wow.
Real bad. Even when I was a little kid, I would just hear the voice of God and listen to Him, and until I had this point of resentment towards God, and then I just started ignoring Him like a rebellious child would do. Being gay made me realize how insecure I was. That I was this way for various reasons. Growing up, thank God for my relationship with my father now, but I didn't always have a good relationship with my father, and I would feel alone. So, I mean, I knew I was, well, let me not lie. I never thought I was that attractive. So when women would give me attention, I would just be like, oh, that. So I would run with it. But when men gave me attention, I mean, I would run with that too. So, I was just attention seeking, basically just from my childhood on up. And, you know, my insecurities were heightened, even though I thought that being in a relationship with this girl that I was in a relationship with for about a year and a half or whatever, the insecurities were still strong. Like, I thought that being in a relationship would fix everything. And honestly, being in a relationship just lets you know how broken you are if you haven't dealt with the proper things. And I remember God giving me warnings and dreams, and my parents are both very prophetic, so that was never fun. Talking about hey Jalen, let me see your phone. No, bruh. What do you mean you found our TikTok? It just used to be insane. But they would just find stuff. They would just know stuff because God would just tell them, and I had this love-hate relationship with God from that. But being in those situations and hearing the voice of God and never listening to the warnings and the corrections and the things, I just always took it as He just hates me and He just wants me to suffer. He don't like me for real. And I don't know, it's just like at one point I just gave up on God, and He never gave up on me. He just he kept going. And until one point I had just given up on life. And I tried to kill myself. This was, I don't know, was I 12? I think my first attempt, no, not 12. 12, 15, 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there. I had this attempt to just end it all, and God said no, and I woke up. And of course I was sick, but I ended up waking up, and I ended up living. And all these identities that I had put on myself, they started weighing on me. Like, I felt like I had to be masculine because I wasn't pretty enough, or I was too large, like too tall, too big to be feminine, and having to be masculine to appease to others' fantasies of what they wanted from me. And if you're out there and you're listening and you're struggling with homosexuality and you're struggling with transgenderism, I know that it's harder than people like to recognize. The depression that comes with it, the insecurities that come with it, the anxiety that comes with it, the fear of never being enough that comes with it. It's not worth it. Sex with women, sex with men, it's not worth it. Doing all this stuff, hooking up, it's not worth it. I promise you. When I changed my life over to Christ and I decided to rock with Him rather than being in the world and to do these things, the freedom and the peace that I felt that surpasses all understanding was so strong. Like, I'm trying to tell you, giving up being gay was one of the best things I could have done for me. Like, that's not for everybody, and that's okay. But I'm not here to condemn you. I'm not here to hate on you because I get it. It's easier to run to the flesh side, be like, man, they're attractive, and rather than taking your flesh under the subjection of the Holy Spirit. And it's easier and it's more fun, but it also brings a lot of warfare, like a lot of unnecessary warfare. I never knew how unprotected I was until I was finally protected. And I'm like, the depression I used to feel back then wasn't normal. The what's the word I'm looking for? Body dysmorphia that I felt back then wasn't normal. And it's just like, sure, to have fun is great, but would you rather have fun, or would you rather have joy that's everlasting? Fun lasts for a little bit, joy lasts forever. And if you're questioning whether or not you should return from homosexuality, out of the bottom of my heart, you should. It's a dark place. And as someone who was there, it's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. Finally, at one point, this is me moving forward in my testimony. Finally, at one point, some events had transpired. A lot of truth came out about what I was doing and me being with women and all that stuff. And I broke. Me and the person I was with, we had broken up. I was broken, and a lot of things transpired. My insecurities were heightened. I hated myself, and my heart was just broken. It was to the point where I felt dead. Like I was just a walking dead vessel. And that's when God took me. But this time I was so desperate for something that I took His offer. And it was one of the greatest things that God has ever done for me. Taking me out of besides Jesus dying on the cross for me, but taking me out of the pit and deciding that He loves me enough to keep me when I'm this broken. I'm still struggling with homosexuality at this point. I'm still struggling with all these other things, but I decide to put it down and to chase God with all my heart. And honestly, naturally, the stuff just started falling off. Like, of course, I have my deliverance sessions, of course. But the fire and the zeal that I had for God was just so strong that it was disgusting to look at women that way. I felt bad. It was gross to have those thoughts. Those hypersexual thoughts of masturbation, all of that stuff was disgusting to me. Because I had experienced something so raw, something so personal that I just couldn't get enough of Him. I just wanted to please God. And a lot of people are like, well, you're making this switch and it's crazy. There's a whole lot of people who just decided to not like me after my switch to who I am now. And I think that really showed me that some people would rather have a surface fun person than to have someone who's free. They would rather you be bound and funny than free and realistic, free and saved and alive. And if you're out there and you're depressed and wondering if there's a way out and you're contemplating suicide, hey man, there's so much more. And it gets tiring I understand it gets tiring hearing people say there's better days, but I'm trying to tell you better's right now. Like, you're here, things around you may look sucky, but God is greater than your problems, greater than your circumstance. Do you know how big God is? Do you know how big God is? Do you know how big his heart is? Do you know that he will chase after you? That he will intercede for you? That he will love you even when you feel like you're unlovable? He's God. And he cares for you. Is that not enough? He's God and he loves you. Is that not enough? He's God and he made you his child. Is that not enough? So my suggestion is you keep your head up and you keep going, because greater is he. But after that point where I got to that zeal, mind you, I'm about to come clean on some things. I was using my prophetic giftings while I was still doing terrible things. Now, will the Lord use anybody? Yeah. But when I tell you, when I gave that crap up and started chasing God and not doing the stuff I was doing, lying, doing this, yada, 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 yo, all the gifts that God had given me heightened, stronger, much, much, much better. Because he's so good. And because it's like it's just right. Like, there's no other way to describe it. It's just right. Because once the soul and the spirit are aligned, because my soul was just all up in the world in the flesh. But he grabbed it, put my soul right here, soul and spirit together. And once they were together, it's just been such a great connection, and everything's just been so much nicer. Even when I'm sad, it's nicer. Like, it's crazy. It's great having someone to talk to during those times when it gets dark. And sorry if I'm kind of rambling on. I don't really have a direct path, kind of just being wherever I see. But I do want to go into the word because I want to make sure that I always incorporate that in here, so I'm not being, is facetious a word? I don't know. I don't even know what it means. It just sounds cool. Psalm 91. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. For it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you may seek refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and bulwark. You will not be afraid of the terror by night, or of the arrow that flies by day, of the pestilence that stalks in darkness, or of the destruction that lays waste at noon. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not approach you. You will only look on with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked, for you have made the Lord my refuge, even the Most High your dwelling place. No evil will befall you, nor will any plague come near your tent, for he will give his angels charge concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will bear you up in their hands, that you do not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and cobra, the young lion and the serpent will trample down. Because he has loved me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him securely on high because he has known my name. He will call upon me and I will answer him. I will be with him and rescue. I will rescue him. I will be with him in trouble and honor him. With a long life I will satisfy him and let him see my salvation. If you don't take anything out of this 15-minute and 30-something odd second video, know how good God is and how willing he is to set you free. Know the salvation of the Lord. Fun fact, this thing ain't on.